So everybody meet my new dog. Her name's Oakley. Hi. She's 500 pounds. No, I'm joking. This is my new cow, guys, Oakley. She's an Angus. She's super friendly. She was bottle fed. 4-H animal. And she's a new addition to our homestead. Isn't that right? Yes. Yes. And as you can imagine, we're going to talk about all these food shortages. Isn't that right, Oakley? All these supposed food shortages out there. So a lot of people are concerned about all these food shortages that everybody's freaking out about. And I can tell you that I am not that worried, but not necessarily for the reasons that you may think. So while it's true that I have food pretty much following me around, it's not the real reason why I'm not concerned about these supposed food shortages. There is no real food shortage. And let me explain. You like to be scratched, don't you? Yes. What I'm saying is there's tons of food out there. Farmers and ranchers are growing food. The big issue is the bureaucracy and the red tape. So we have lots of animals in the US that are available, but we don't have a way to get that subsidized food, those subsidized farm animals, to the grocery stores. But they're still there. So yes, if you're looking at this from a perspective of, well, my grocery store or my grocery outlet, I'm seeing that the shelves are bare. Yeah, that may be true, but that doesn't mean that there's a food shortage. It just means that food is not able to get from where it's actually created, where it actually lives, to a grocery store near you. And what I'm going to talk about in this conversation that I'm going to have with you guys is why that is and why that doesn't mean that there's a food shortage. Again, just because you don't see it and you see prices go up does not mean that there's a shortage of food. It means that there is a problem, there is a break in the supply chain. We're going to get into all the details of that. So let's get started.
Mr. President, on the food supply chain,
Yeah.
Is there anything your administration is doing or might be doing in the future to make sure that there's enough meat supplies?
Yeah, we're working with Tyson.
Exports
We are. We're going to sign an executive order today, I believe, and that'll solve any liability problems where they had certain liability problems, and we'll be in very good shape. We're working with Tyson, which is one of the big companies in that world, and we always work with the farmers. There's plenty of supply. There's plenty of, as you know, there's plenty of supply. It's distribution, and we will probably have that today solved. It was a very unique circumstance because of liability.
It seems like the issue right now.
So what is the president talking about? Essentially, the president signed an executive order that's going to keep food processing plants open, plants that are going to take the animal and harvest them and basically get them from where they're currently at to a distributor that's then going to take those animal products and put them on the shelf nationwide. So as you can see, there's some steps. A lot of people think that, you have cattle that are raised, they're sent to a place to slaughter, and then all of a sudden they magically appear, on the shelves for everybody. And that's not the process. That's not the step. There are many steps in between. And so you have really two different kinds of farmers, okay? You have farmers that actually own the royalties of their farm, the animals and livestock they own are owned by them, and then they take those animals, and those animals are then processed and sold. And then you have contract farmers, which are really what you're hearing about in the crux of this conversation. And this is the important nuance that no one wants to talk about, especially in the preparedness community, because when you actually break things down for people, the fear goes away relatively quickly. And I get that that's not popular. I know everybody wants to be purposely lied to and scared, but that's why you guys listen to me, because either you are really upset with what I have to say and you just can't turn away, or what I actually say makes sense and you can look it up and verify it yourself. So with the contract farmers, these are farmers that don't own the royalties of their labor, so to speak. So these are usually mom and pop farms have been bought out by big corporations like Tyson. So Tyson owns, for all intents and purposes, the labor of that farm, the animals of that farm, and Tyson can tell them what to do. And so if we see historically, these big food titans, we'll call them, they've been making a lot of money. They are they are usually the people that want to set regulations to make it harder for your mom and pop farmers and ranchers that aren't owned. And essentially, they make money off of the backs of these once small time or small, town farmers. And so in this instance, we're seeing that, yes, this virus, COVID-19, has caused these food processing plants to not operate at the potential that we are all used to. And that's because you have all these people that are getting sick. So with that comes a delayed reaction time in getting this food processed. So what happens? You have these animals that are backed up and they can't go to get processed. And so what we're seeing is you were seeing that Tyson, they're on a schedule. Okay, everything they do is measured down to the minute, literally the minute. You have animals that need to be gone at this time and then new animals that are coming in. So any kind of delay or anything that would cause disruption, that distribution causes a problem for them. Because all these animals that they're culling because they have new animals coming through on the way, and they need to get these animals out of there as soon as possible. And the reason why they're not worried about this large euthanasia of animals is because everything is already taken care of by either a government subsidy or by insurance. So if they have to cull their herd because of a statewide emergency panic, or statewide emergency that has executive orders and basically teeth that go with it, well, insurance is going to cover that. What isn't covered by insurance is going to be covered by government subsidies because we subsidize big agriculture, both plant and animal. So that's really what's going on. That's the real nuance of what's happening. And that's the reason why these farmers are doing it, because they don't own these animals. These contract farmers do not own this livestock. They've already been paid for their work. They are on contract with somebody like Tyson, and they can't sell it to you because they don't own it. And they're already paid. So, they can secretly and quietly complain and whine, but the reality of the situation is they know they don't own those animals. That's why somebody can come into their farm and euthanize them and have them get ready for the next cycle of animals. Now, what we're seeing on the other side of the coin are farmers, especially the ones that are in my local area, that do own the royalties, and they, let's say, are a commercial cattle producer. My vet happens to be one of those people. She is holding on to her livestock. And that's because right now you have a big influx of farmers that normally would be sending their animals to get processed that are, again, having the same issues with. There is a delay in the food system, right? We're seeing delays in everything from trucks having the manning to get the food from the slaughterhouse or from the processing plant to the distribution centers, and then from distribution centers to the grocery store. And we're seeing a breakdown in how fast they can process these animals. I mean, you're seeing delays all the way around. So what a lot of these people are doing is they're holding on to their animals, and they are now flooding the auction market. So an auction that would normally have, let's say they were going to sell 500 head of cattle. Well, now they have, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 heads of cattle that are now trying to go to auction. So what happens? You then create overnight, you create a number that is very, very low. So an auction price can go from what my producer, my vet, she's a cattle producer, she usually expects to get $3 to $4 a pound. Well, right now it's 50 cents a pound, 60 cents a pound. And so for her, that is unreasonable. So instead of selling, she is going to hold on to her cattle because they're grass-fed. She can do that. She's going to hold on to her cattle. And then what's going to happen is people, everyday people that go to the grocery store, are going to want a bigger demand. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people going out to the grocery stores, buying lots of food, stockpiling on animal products because all these people are telling them that there's a shortage. There's this narrative that there's a food shortage, right? So then they're going to buy all these animals. So then what's going to happen is that's going to cause the auction price of these cattle to go up. And when that auction price goes up to a number that these cattle producers that own royalties seem fair, they're going to then put their cattle in for auction. So this is hashtag capitalism, all right? This is how capitalism works. You have a lot of producers out there that are holding on to cattle, holding on to pigs, holding on to chickens, turkeys, you name it. They're holding on to their livestock because they know they can get them at a fair price later. So they're holding on to it. So what we're really going to see, if we're going to see any shortage that I predict, is we're going to see a shortage on feed, commercial feed, whether that be grain, compressed pellets, etc. We're going to see a shortage of those products because you're going to have so many farmers and ranchers are going to be holding on to their cattle and livestock longer, and they're going to require those food sources. So there's going to be a higher demand for those food sources than previous. So if I do see any shortages, that's really where, if I had to, if I had to put money out there, that's where I would put my money. That we're going to see feed costs, go up, and we're going to see, and I don't even want to say shortage. I don't like that word. Unavailability may be high on those products. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing, if we're looking at this from a holistic, nuanced sort of way, we are seeing the fact that you have cattle producers and livestock producers that are holding on to their animals and would rather not sell in this market, which, for all intents and purposes, is not a bad idea. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean for you? Well, with that being said, there are food producers, that are still willing to sell animals. They're not going to do it at the auction, and right now, the way the food system works, there's not a whole lot of avenues for those people to sell their livestock and sell their animals. There's just not. We haven't. A lot of people haven't thought that far ahead. Now, there's a few options, and we'll go over those here in just a second. But in the grand scheme of things, we have a problem because never before have we had an issue where people have not been able to depend on #capitalism, the grocery store. So can you get food right now at a very decent price? Absolutely. I mean, I just bought a whole cow at 500 pounds for 50 cents a pound. And the farmer I got it from had no problem with that because he was going to take his animal to auction anyway. If those are the prices, at least I'm saving him the trip. Instead of having to go to auction and go through that whole evolution, he can just, take it over to my house and drop it off on my homestead and say, there you go, let's exchange currency for this and let's be on our way. So you can go to the producers directly, and the biggest issue that we're having is a lot of people either don't want to, aren't able to, or don't know how to. And so that's kind of what we'll talk about, and that's where we'll go from there. So let's talk about what we can do. So the first thing I'm going to get done and over with are subscription-based food services like ButcherBox. Personally, I'm not a fan of ButcherBox. I have many reasons for that, but I'm obviously, if you're listening to this and you're wanting to know about food shortages, chances are you buy your food from the grocery store anyway. So this is not going to be a big leap for you. So the great thing about these types of subscriptions are they are super easy. It's just as easy as grocery shopping. In fact, that's exactly what you're doing. You're just doing it online. And so with these food services, you're getting the food directly from the affiliate. So everything is pretty self-contained. You're not going to run into the same issues as you are in the normal supply chain because everything is done in-house. The only issues you may see is getting it from the source to you, and that's going to be based upon shipping. So shipping is going to be going to have its own set of complications just for the fear fact that you are depending on the shipping process to get it to you. But other than that, everything is pretty simple. It's just as easy as grocery shopping. It's a click and play program. And so I see this becoming more popular just because people they don't care really. They care less about what they're getting as far as quality and what species of animal they're consuming. Most people just care about price and availability. And if you can put in a few words that make them happy, like pasture raised, grass fed, then that will give them enough warm and fuzzies to go ahead and say, yeah, this is something that I'm willing to do. So I see this being a very good alternative to the grocery store, and it's going to allow people to really talk to their consumer and at least work with their producer directly. So consumer to producers, more direct, and anything in that direction. I mean, it's capitalism, right? So do what you got to do. But I see this being a favorite and a more popular option going forward as this catches on. And in reality, it's like anything else. Look at the evolution of Blockbuster to Redbox to Netflix. And so, this is the same. I mean, that's how we're going. So it absolutely makes sense for people to go from, the grocery store, like I got to shop at the grocery store, to, okay, I'm going to do something that's shopping online. And then hopefully, we can get to a place where people just realize, what the most sustainable option is, right? Which would ultimately be growing your own food and buying local. But for now, I see this becoming a very viable and popular option in the very, 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 very near future. It's already pretty popular now, but I see this taking off dramatically. The next big popular thing I see happening, especially hopefully for those of you that are prepared minded, is getting it directly from the source. And so that's going to require a little bit more investment in kind of research, but it's going to require a little bit more action on the consumer side of the house, and it's going to require more action on the producer side of the house, because right now producers and consumers are not talking. There's so many affiliates and third parties that are making this all happen that most people never know and will never know where their food comes from. So since there's that disconnect, we are starting to see that producers are now creating websites and trying to reach out to consumers, which is great. I think that's great for producers because it allows them to really show off what is great about, producing food, and that is the act of actually growing and raising animals and producing food. And so I think that this is going to be something that's taking off. We're already seeing it now. We are seeing farmers, hog farmers, cattle farmers that are actively advertising, whether that's online, on Craigslist, through word of mouth, Facebook, social media, and they're saying, hey, I have 120 hogs that I'm wanting to sell. I'm going to sell them. I will sell you a whole hog at this price, and you can come get them. And a lot of people are doing that, and they're going directly to a butcher, or if they have a butcher on site that's certified, then they're able to sell whole hogs for whatever price. So I think this is a really great thing. I think this is what you should be thinking about, especially if you're in the preparedness mindset, because if you're wanting to, stock your freezer, so to speak, get that working pantry up and going, this is a great way to do it. Buy a whole hog, buy half a cow, or whatever it is you're trying to do. So I think this is great, and I think this is a very logical step forward because, like I said, it allows you to talk directly to the producers. And as soon as that happens, and as soon as people are comfortable and we can get a really good working method of how to do this, it's really going to put a damper on, it's really going to make the food system as we know irrelevant. And you can expect to see, I can already tell you can expect to see additional red tape that people will try to enact, corporate entities will try to enact, because big animal agriculture does not want this. They want the mystification of how food is grown and the complexity and the health concerns to damper your ability to talk directly to a producer. You know what I mean? According to them, you need to have everything done through them, because if not, you could get sick, even though they are buying directly from these producers anyway. So they don't have a problem buying from the producer to make money to sell to you, but they do if you decide to cut them out and go directly to the producer. So I think this is great. Obviously there's lots of avenues out there, and I think, like I said, it's going to require legwork from the consumer to do some research and figure out what's available, and it's also going to be a little bit of homework for the producer to kind of get out of this archaic mindset of not having to be good at social media, not having to be good at connecting with the people. Because if they're wanting their, everything that's great about them to, be put out there for the public so that the public can recognize what it is they do, they might have to hire a PR guy. They might have to hire somebody on advertisement, or they just might have to get somebody that has a basic understanding of how social media and the internet works to create a website and to put their information out there for, the consumers to look at and make their own decision for. So we're already seeing this. We're already seeing a lot of producers reach out to the general public and say, hey, this is what I got. This is what I can do. Please come and look at my farm and look at my ranch. And I'm open for business if you guys want food. So I think that's great. And I think that we are already seeing that that's already starting to take place. So that's good, and that's something that I'm really happy about. The third thing, which is I think is the most logical thing that you should be doing, is obviously growing your own food. And that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, go out there and buy a cow. I'm not saying that, but there's lots of other options. Chicken, quail, rabbit, duck. If you have a little bit of space, you can do pigs, sheep, goats. There are so many different options out there for people to, start to be producers themselves. You know what I mean? So, every little bit helps, even if it's just having a couple of backyard hens for eggs. Great. It is allowing you to at least have some kind of control over where your food comes from. And this is a great way to network, and it's a great way to meet other people, other like-minded people. And it's a great way to get yourself into the realm of preparedness and get to know agriculture and get to know your local farmers and ranchers. That way you can interact with them, so you can make this food chain nonsense obsolete. So if we're looking at everything realistically and holistically, we can see there is no food shortage problem. There are lots of animals, and there are lots of animals for sale, livestock for sale, at a very, very low cost right now. It's never been cheaper to fill your freezers than it is right now. And I don't mean go to the store, buy animal products and meat and put in your freezer. I mean go to local producers and purchase animals. Go to local producers and get the food where it comes from. Yes, it's going to require probably a little bit more legwork than what you're used to, but you can do so very inexpensively, and you at least will know that the quality you're getting is better than from big animal agriculture. So anybody that tries to tell me there's a food shortage problem, like I said, I'm just going to point you back to the facts. I'm just going to point the fact out that just because there's a problem in our supply chain, and just because there is a problem with grocery store supply, does not mean that there isn't food out there. And we really have to get away from this idea that food only comes from a grocery store. We really have to get away from this idea that the only way to feed myself is to depend on big agriculture and go to the grocery store. We need to realize that before there was a grocery store, before there was hashtag capitalism that made everything so easy, there were people that grew their own food. There were people that ate locally. There were people that actually cared about where their food came from. And that's just the reality of the situation. I think capitalism is great, and I don't mean to say capitalism derogatory, but unfortunately, when people think of capitalism modern day 2020, there is a sense of entitlement. There is a sense of, I have money, therefore I should be able to get whatever I want with it, and the system should automatically have what I want when I want it because I have cash. And this mentality is going to be very detrimental. And if you have this mentality, it's going to be detrimental to your overall sustainability mindset. I love capitalism because it allows me to do for myself. Yes, I like food. I like food probably more than the majority of people watching this, maybe. And capitalism is great because it allows me to produce food for myself. So we really have to change how we look at our problems, because if we change how we look at the problems, and we are going to get the solutions that we so desire. At the end of the day, like you've heard me say so many times before, have your actions mirror your beliefs. If you truly believe in something, your actions should support those beliefs. So, like I said, there's lots of food out there. Please, look at your options. Even if that means going to a food, subscription service. Hey, at least you know that you're going to have food when you want it, and at least you know somewhat where your food is coming from, and at least you are not going to be as affected by the food supply chain. Buy local, buy local, buy local. I can't stress that enough. Go out there, meet your farmers. Go out there, meet the animals that you're going to be consuming. Even understand where that food's coming from. And obviously, the most sustainable and realistic option to me, the one that makes the most sense, is to grow your own food. And it's not as difficult as you think, and there's lots of resources out there. My channel is not at all one of a kind. There are so many different channels out there that show you how to grow your own food, show you how to raise your own animals, show you how to do everything step by step. And I highly encourage you guys to do that, because the more people that we have that are sustainable, that are prepared, the more we can take back, our food sovereignty. So there you have it. If you guys have any questions, put them in the comment section below. If you have any comments, or if you think I'm completely wrong, great. Let's have that dialogue. Explain to me why I'm wrong. Explain to me why we should depend on big agriculture. Explain to me why, the only place to get our food should be at the grocery store. I love to hear the comments. Like I said, at the end of the day, the responsibility to feed ourselves and our family rests upon us. And that's just what it is, guys. So hope you guys like the video, and as always, long live the Republic.